Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda. In Judges chapter 6, we're introduced to one of the great characters of the Old Testament. His name's Gideon. And Gideon would become a judge of the people of Israel, and he would become a deliverer who would lead them in battle and bring them liberation and victory against the Midianites. But whenever we first encounter Gideon, he's nobody impressive. He's actually hiding away. And he actually sees himself as the least of the smallest and the weakest of the tribes of Israel. But God says to him, and we read this in Judges chapter 6, when the angel of the Lord, verse 12, when the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." And I can see Gideon actually looking round to see where's the mighty warrior that the angel is speaking to. Because Gideon didn't feel like a mighty warrior. He feels like somebody who's afraid. He feels like somebody who's intimidated by the enemy. I mean, he's actually hiding from them. He was threshing wheat in a wine press to keep it from the Midianites. Well, you don't thresh wheat in a wine press. A wine press is like hidden down, it's underground. And for threshing wheat, you need wind to blow the chaff away. So this is actually the worst place you could possibly fulfill this task. But he's doing it out of fear. And yet God speaks to him through the angel, and God says, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." You know what I love about this? God does not talk to Gideon as Gideon is now, but God talks to Gideon as Gideon is going to be. Because God sees the end from the beginning. God doesn't see a frightened man hiding in a wine press. God sees a mighty warrior. And God seeing Gideon as a mighty warrior and telling Gideon he was a mighty warrior was the beginning of Gideon becoming a genuine mighty warrior. And later on, as we read about his exploits against the Midianites, his actions begin to match up to the description that God had used to address him. You know, I've discovered as a Christian leader, sometimes the most effective way to encourage people to improve their behavior and encourage people to move forward with the Lord is not to castigate them, is not to start telling them everything they're doing wrong and putting them down and telling them how they need to do better. But it's actually to talk to them as if they're already doing better. It's to talk to them as God sees them. It's to talk to them as God knows they're going to become, not where they're at now. So you encourage people for their compassion, even when they're not showing compassion. You encourage them and say, "God bless you for your faith," even if there doesn't seem to be a lot of faith there right now, because you're speaking about what is going to be, not about what you see now. That's the language of faith. God spoke that language over Gideon, and we need to speak it over one another. But there's something else here. Sometimes we need to speak it over ourselves. Because sadly, not every person has an encouraging tongue in their head. There are people who delight in putting others down. There are people who delight in cynicism and criticism. If you listen to those voices, you begin to see yourself the way they see you. You know, there's an amazing passage in the book of Numbers whenever Moses sent the spies out to look over the promised land, not to decide whether they should go in or not. God had already told them that, but to work out the strategy and the plan. They came back and they talked about these giants in the land. They said, well, we felt like we was grasshoppers in our own eyes and in their eyes also. You know what? If you look like a grasshopper in your own eye, you'll end up looking just as insignificant to everybody else, because the way you look at yourself is vitally important. And I want to encourage us today. Don't look at yourself as you are now, but look at yourself as what God's going to do with you and what God's going to make you. So speak that over yourself. Tell yourself you're a mighty warrior. Tell yourself you're more than a conqueror. Tell yourself you have the righteousness of Christ. Tell yourself that you're walking in holiness and love and victory and power. Even if you're not feeling holy and victorious and powerful, tell yourself that you're going to walk like that. Start talking to yourself as like you're going to be, not like you are now. And you will find that God will bring those things to pass. May God bless you this day. Have a wonderful day. And please join us again next time for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.